Please can I ask that the Council gives its thanks to Jason Mallinson of Oaks be placed on record in respect of his involvement of the rescue of those trapped in the flooded caves in Thailand. Thank you. To allow us to deal with the business requiring a decision in time for a finish of approximately 5:30 p.m, and I'm sure none of you want to go into extra time. As long as there's no foul play this evening. I have consulted with the Chief Executive and the group leaders and will apply Council Procedure Rule 5 to reorder the agenda. A list of the reordered agenda items has been put on your seats. Decisions are required on agenda items 8, Financial Outturn Report, 9, Kirklees Corporate Plan, and 10, the allocation of seats. Due to the changing times of the meeting, we will also apply flexibility to enable any members of the public who may arrive later for agenda items 6 and 7 to be given the opportunity to submit a petition or ask questions. We will commence consideration of items 6 and 7 at approximately 5:20 p.m. In line with Council Procedure Rule 12, brackets 8, there will be an opportunity for councillors who have submitted written questions to attend the next Cabinet meeting or ask for a written question within 7 days, or should that be of this meeting? Thank you. I'm now going to pass over to the Chief Executive who has an announcement. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you. I would like to thank all the members for the flexibility that has been shown to enable this council meeting to be brought forward. And as the Mayor quite rightly says, I think there's been a lot of support to enable that to happen. So your flexibility was much appreciated, but I just want to recognise that in the meeting time changing, there are a number of councillors who would have been here had we not done that at such a late juncture. So I just think it's important to recognise that. On a final note, I would like to say that I absolutely send, on behalf of the whole Council, good luck for England today in their semi-final. And just to put on record, it's coming home.
Item 2. Are there any apologies for absence?
I can say there is no apology from Labour Group. All in attendance here. Thank you.
No difference. Thank you, Councillor Sokil. Councillor Patrick, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have apologies from Councillors Bolt, Dewitt, Light and Thompson. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more apologies for any of the groups? Councillor Burke, please.
Thank you. Councillor Kath Pinnock and Councillor Richard Eastwood will be late.
Thank you. No more apologies. Thank you. Oh, sorry. Councillor Lyons, sorry.
Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Lyons. Item 3. I move that the minutes of the meeting of Annual Council held on the 23rd of May 2018 be approved as a correct record. Is that seconded?
Second, Madam.
Please vote by show of hands. That is carried. Thank you. Item 4. Members who have any interest should disclose their interests now. Are there any interests to declare? Can I remind any members who have declared an interest to complete the form and submit to the clerk by the end of the meeting? Item 5. Petitions from members of the Council. Are there any petitions by members? No? Okay. Thank you. So now item 8, page 11, Financial Outturn Report 2017-2018. Councillor Turner, please.
Madam Mayor, thank you. This is a financial outturn report and rollover report for the financial year 2017-18. Points to note in what is a very lengthy and detailed report are that we delivered the targeted £54 million cuts to services against our revised budget of £286.4 million. This was achieved against a backdrop of continuing growth in demand for many services, especially in the adult social care world, children's services and specifically the special education needs activity budgets. The pressures in the SEND budget has been recognised by government and they have accepted that Kirklees is underfunded in this area, so they have allocated extra funding which is to be phasing over the next 7 years. We must welcome this extra funding and the recognition by government that we have growing pressures within the SEND budget. Significant progress has been made in reducing the council spend on agency staff, most significantly in children's services. This is a testament to the hard work that has been put into improving children's services and making Kirklees an attractive place to work. The continued commitment and hard work of all those involved in improving children's services will, I hope, help us recruit even more permanent staff, as people start to recognise that we have an innovative, forward-thinking, well-run children's services that delivers for our most vulnerable children. The more permanent, well-qualified staff we have will help reduce even further our spend on agency staff during this financial year. The Council had an underspend of £5.12 million against the revised budget. This underspend will be spent on public realm-based works, and officers from the Police Directorate have been asked to look at how this can be spent and to prepare a report for consideration by Cabinet. The collection fund continues to perform well, and I am sure that it is down to all the work and effort that has been put in by officers over the last few years to get as many residents as we can to pay by direct debit, and the drive to increase this continues. It's worth noting that our continued capital investment in our Digital by Design programme is paying huge dividends. We have recently received confirmation that we've been awarded 4-star status by the Society of Information Technology Management, better connected for our website and digital services. This means that those who are experts in the digital world recognise our digital systems being at the forefront of digital connectivity. This means that our collaborative work on the Digital by Design programme has taken it from 1 star, the very lowest, when we started, to the very highest 4-star level. Better Connect is a de facto standard for web and digital services, and 4 stars what all authorities strive for, but few achieve. Our residents and staff will continue to enjoy the benefits of our investment in our Digital by Design strategy as we roll out much more and better services in the future. Those involved in the programme should be congratulated for achieving a 4-star rating. This sound financial management of the Council's budget is a testament to the hard work and commitment of all officers at all levels to ensure that we deliver services while maintaining a strong grip on our finances. Madam Mayor, I move that recommendations of Cabinet as set out on pages 12 and 13 be approved.
Thanks, Councillor Turner. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Panda. Are there any comments on this matter? Councillor Hall, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On the face of it, a £1.6 million underspend is to be welcomed. However, it does mask some important detail that we should be concerned about. The first of which is the extra money that was put into children's and families for obvious reasons, and I think we ought to have a feedback pretty soon as to whether that extra money that's going in there will have to be replicated or whether actually we're working through that money and whether it's required. The second point is that we added £8.2 million to reserve in year that wasn't expected. Another point is to do with the savings. There's a big thing about the transformation savings and the service level changes. The transformation savings to be made in transformation are running at about 82%, so we're about £5 million short in that. The service level changes are running about 95% according to the report. And I wonder whether that just shows that it's easier to pick the cuts in services rather than to find the efficiencies in the deliveries of the services. And the last point, Madam Mayor, is to do with the capital plan. This underspend wouldn't be possible had it not been for the absolutely massive underspend in the capital plan, which is only about half spent. It does say in the report, under the heading Strategic Priorities, that the learning and early support spending is 40% underspent. The HRA strategic priorities are 88% underspent. And again, under strategic priorities, economy, regeneration and culture is 86% underspent. Only 14% of that money has been spent within the year. Now, Madam Mayor, these are classed as strategic priorities, every one. And if the Cabinet cannot deliver on these, what are strategic priorities, what are they going to deliver on? Because to me, if it's a priority, that should be what comes first. And it's not happening. I think it should be a source of embarrassment for the Cabinet that they can't deliver this. First of all, it's an indictment of the Cabinet's inability to get to grips with the problems of our towns and our crumbling highways, potholes, congestion, air pollution. If you look at the cranes that have gone up in Huddersfield, they're all around the university. You don't see many anywhere else. And secondly, it's an indictment of the Cabinet's solution to these problems, which has always been to throw the huge amounts of money into the capital plan without an idea at all how it's going to be spent, and a lack of political leadership to make anything happen. I would like to contrast this with what we see in other towns and cities across West Yorkshire. Only a couple of weeks ago I was reading a paper which was about a regeneration scheme in Castleford, where they're injecting, with partners, £750 million into one town not even half the size of Huddersfield. And yet we see absolutely nothing. Further on, we're to discuss the corporate plan later on, where the Cabinet crow about delivering regeneration schemes in Dewsbury Huddersfield. And I dare anybody actually to spot one, because they're conspicuous by their absence. Madam Mayor, I would like to move an amendment while I'm on my feet, which is from the Conservative group. I agree with the Cabinet's recommendation on how to spend some of this rollover money into public realm works, because I think we all see the deterioration in cleanliness and tidiness among the borough, and I think it's a good thing to put the money into. However, the Conservative amendment is to insert the words "to be shared fairly across all 23 wards," as the fear is that the lion's share of that money will be soaked up by Huddersfield and Dewsbury, and that the rest of the borough, Batley, Cleckheaton, Spen Valley, Birstall, Murfield and the south of the borough, Heckmond-Wyke, mustn't forget Heckmond-Wyke, dear to my heart as you know, will be totally ignored if the Cabinet get their own way, Madam Mayor. So I would like to move that amendment.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Lawson?
Speak to the amendment. Thank you, Matt. I wanted to speak to the original motion, to the original report. I'll be brief in my comments. I don't wish to replay the debates that we had in the budget in February. On page 12 of our agenda pack, we note that in point 6, the recommendation of Cabinet there is reference to rollover in the place-based public realm works that comes to just over £1.5 million. First of all, I'd like to recognise the work put in by officers to achieve these services and deliver these services, especially in the light of last year's overspend. They are to be congratulated. Considering that this administration cut £1.9 million from the library's budget in February, this group feels that it would be appropriate if these savings were ploughed back into helping library volunteers and users to keep as much of the service open as possible. There will still be a shortfall, but it would go some way to restoring the public's confidence in the intent of this administration. If I've understood, some of these Savings that went to make up this figure are anticipated to be annual, which would suggest that there would be an element of sustainability with this. The other reason to keep libraries functioning at the highest possible capacity is to make future spending on them easier. The reserves that are steadily going to be built over the next 10 years at 9.1 million a year, we keep getting warned off them, but we'll keep coming back to them and testing what is an appropriate level of those reserves. I understand that these reserves are being built against what may come in 2020 and beyond, as the current chaotic political atmosphere means that we must prepare for the worst, especially with the possible effects of Brexit and the future settlements or lack thereof. Should definite agreements be made over the next couple of years, we should expect a recalculation from our Chief Finance Officer, releasing some of those funds. Let's not have a situation where we have money to spend and have to spend large portions of it setting things like libraries back up from scratch. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor Munro, please.
Hello. I'd just like to make a comment on the subject of funds being rolled over. I'm seeking clarification on underspend at ward level. At the end of 2017-2018, my predecessor had unallocated funding remaining of £11,000 plus. The expectation in previous years has been for unallocated funds to be rolled over year on year to the particular ward councillors. If my colleague had not stood down and had been re-elected, then I'm sure she would assume quite rightly, as would any councillor here, that the monies would be rolled over to her. Residents in my ward are expecting those funds tied up in my colleague's seat to be rolled over to me, so I can begin to fund some of their exciting projects. I am informed there has never been a year when this has not happened, when the rollover has not happened. And while the individual member in my case has changed, the political party hasn't, so it should be honoured. So my question is, how do I make sure that the rollover from last year is rolled over to me this year? And additionally, any decision on rollovers should be the same across all wards. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Cooper, please.
Good evening. And I rise to support the Conservative amendment. And the reason I rise to support the Conservative amendment is because of the wisdom of the wording. It says to be shared fairly across all 23 wards. Not equally, but fairly. And I think the Conservatives have recognised that deprivation, that need, that all those sort of things are the way that we can actually share things fairly. And I know they understand that because IKEA, of course, is in a Conservative ward, Ursula Birkinshaw, and they're quite happy for the business rates from IKEA to be shared equally. No, fairly, not equally, throughout Kirklees. So I commend the Conservatives for the wisdom of their wording, and I think the administration would be wise also to support the Conservative amendment as well.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor Pandor, please, and can you just verify if you're commenting on the substantive of the amendment?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't want to steal my comrade Thunder, Councillor Turner. I'm sure he'll respond to the individual bits. But I also rise to, actually, I read this twice. It actually says, let me just read it, to be fairly spent across all 23 wards. Now, our party is all for fairness. So, you know, this is a no-brainer, and I think that the amendment makes sense. It is to be spread fairly, and we will make sure it's allocated fairly on a needs basis. And I welcome that they're seeing the light in terms of the way we're thinking, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Panda. Are there any more comments from members? No? OK. So we will now take a vote on the amendment. So using your consoles, please. Okay, people, so that has been carried. So that amendment now becomes the substantive. Aye, please. Councillor Taylor? No? Okay, that is carried. Thank you, members. Item 9, page 75. Sorry? Sorry, just one moment, please. I'm just getting conflicting advice here. Just one moment.
Oh, come on, get your act together.
We've just voted on the amendment, which became substantive.
Jeez, I'll sort that out.
Chief Executive's just going to comment on that. Sorry about the confusion.
Right, so we voted on the amendment and that's been passed, and now we need to vote on the substantive. And I know it'll probably be the same again, but let's just do that, please. Thank you.
Right, we've been advised by legal that we can now move on. No? No, so we can move on? Yeah, okay. So it is item 9. Item 9, page 75, Kirklees Corporate Plan 2018-2020.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm assuming that you've all seen a copy of that, or it's all already in your books. Madam Mayor, I don't want to talk too much about what's actually in the book itself, in the report, but what I want to do is I want to actually just set the priorities in terms of what this Cabinet's all about. You can have whatever plan you want, Madam Mayor, but if you don't have the political will behind what you're trying to do, and if you don't have your group behind you in terms of what your values are, then any plan doesn't really mean anything. So the thrust of this plan is all about making sure that we actually talk about the fairness that the Tory group were talking about earlier on. We talk about how we actually make sure that the most vulnerable and the people in our society who actually are the most sort of like disaffected actually engage with what we're trying to do. So the corporate plan is all about equality and fairness. It's all about better outcomes for our communities, our families and our people in whatever areas they live in. It's also about valuing our diverse community across the borough. It doesn't matter if you live in Holmfirth or Birstall or Birkinshaw or Cleckheaton or Jubilee Batley. What we want to do is make sure that every single person in our borough feels valued, and rather than things are done to them, we actually work with them to actually develop solutions and better outcomes. It's all about narrowing the gap, and it's also about making sure that we actually create a fairer society, a more just society. So that's all I want to say, Madam Mayor. I'm sure that the other party, I won't mention which one, will particularly home in to the detail, but I'd like to thank our officers who actually spent so much time in actually putting this together. Like I said, it is a plan. There's a lot of detail that's to be worked up, and hopefully, once this is approved, right, we'll move forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Panda. Is that seconded? Thank you, Councillor Sheard. Are there any comments on this matter? Councillor Cooper, please.
It's a very well written plan. I like it. I think it's been well done. As far as some of the content's concerned, there's this bit about wellness, about supporting people to remain healthy and physically active by working with individuals to help themselves. And I ask people to look at the Chief Executive's blog, Jackie Gedman, who's done a very good blog on walking and cycling. And there's some really positive work that's going on with the City Connect partnership about getting electric bikes, getting people moving and getting cycling there. So that's really positive. So well done on that. Sustainable economy. We've got something here about delivering Huddersfield Dewsbury Town Centre regeneration projects. Now, the important thing about this is you don't just start immediately and everything starts happening. There's master planning work that is involved with this, which takes a number of years to get up and running. And so one of the concerns I have is that where are the timescales on this? How long is it going to take to happen? And what I would have liked to have seen in terms of measuring our impact is some timescales on making those things occur and making them happen. So I think that's something that we could look at revising in the future. Activities, events, public art projects. There's been some really great work being done by Kath Davies on public arts, the Office of Kath Davies. And the public use piano, following on from the initiative I had at the station. There's one there in the market now and a lot of public art going there. So well done, Kath Davies, for all the work that's been going on there. Moving on to clean and green. And we've obviously street cleansing, litter collection, waste collection's been very high profile at the moment. And well done, Carl Battersby. He's been fronting things up and doing an excellent job fronting up the issues that we have with bin collections at the moment. Difficult time, but Carl's been really cracking on there and getting up there in the papers and things. So all credit to Carl there. So improving air quality and things, looking at where we're going with that, very much a public health matter, I think. But electric vehicles, we put an amendment in about electric vehicles, and the reason we did that partly was about public health. We think as a council that we should lead by example, that we should be having vehicles which do not pollute the atmosphere. We are way behind other councils. We are miles behind other councils who've got quite significant electric vehicle fleets. And we need to look at that. That's an area where we need to move forward. I think there was a missed opportunity by not accepting the very well thought out Green Amendment last time. 10,000 new homes by 2023 delivered by the Housing Development Company. Great Green Party amendment that was accepted. Thank you very much. In fact, it was the only amendment that year, as I remember. What I'm concerned about, you might build 10,000 houses built to the very poor standards that we have today. So why not actually invest in 10,000 houses which people will look back at in 30 years' time and go, that is an amazing house that was built to the Kirklees standard, the passive house standard perhaps. I wonder what happened to that report that we put forward. So there we go. Finishing off on efficient and effective here, and it talks about strong political leadership, intelligence-led decision-making, and strategies and policies. Now, I'm all in favour of that. We're all in favour of strong political leadership. One area that I just want to draw attention to is flying lanterns. Now, you may remember, if your memory is that good, that nearly 3 years ago we passed a motion on flying lanterns. And flying lanterns, of course, are not just a hazard to cattle, in terms of them getting chopped up in the feed, they're also a fire hazard. And it has taken the crisis that we have at the moment, after nearly 3 years, for us to actually get a public's
30 seconds, Councillor Cooper.
protection order to get rid of flying lanterns in the public space protection order. So let's have a look at this. If it takes us 3 years, that is not strong political leadership. If it takes us that long, something's wrong. And we need to look at where we do need to make important decisions, that the leadership is there to make it happen.
Thank you, Councillor Cooper. Councillor Smage, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of points I want to raise. On the people in Kirklees live independently and have control over their lives. We mention about care providers, but we don't actually mention about carers and the contribution that they provide. And I think, yet again, that is a missed opportunity for this council to show that it values the contribution of carers and that it will support them. On the clean and green, air quality has been mentioned. It is a very definite health issue. But this is where the Cabinet does need to provide some leadership. We've had some zones that have been declared of poor air quality, been declared quite a while now, and we're still waiting for action plans to be even discussed. And I think it needs the Cabinet to actually... I understand there's been some problems, but I do think the Cabinet needs to show some leadership and actually get these action plans at least started. That would be an improvement, because these areas of poor air quality were declared last year, and we're nearly to the 12 months without any action. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Smage. Can I remind people it might be a good idea to have your mobile phones on silent, please? Councillor Shade, please.
Yes, I rise to support the previous two speakers. Particularly the concern about carers, and I think we have mentioned that many times as part of our strategy. It's just interesting that this lunchtime I was listening to a programme on the way in on a programme on Radio 4 that was talking about how carers are totally disadvantaged by the benefit system, and particularly how universal credit is taking away carers' allowance. And that when someone reaches the age of 65, even though they're caring for their parents, they'll lose the carers' allowance, and they can lose the pension, and they can lose pension credits because of the systems that put to government. So the allowance system that allows people to look after people, for either, whether it's their parents or young brothers and sisters, they have people one after the other coming on about how they've lost benefits and how the system works against them. So I think that is something we should take a big look at. Because we think we should be helping carers elsewhere. I'd just like to take Andrew up on one of his suggestions, because I think that is superb. I think the council should run a scheme to provide electric motorbikes to all councillors, because that will cut down pollution on our moving across the borough incredibly. It cuts down parking space, cuts down pollution, really good for the environment and really good for us. So I think I'm all for that. So I'll support that suggestion. Thank you, Andrew, for that. I think it's a cracking suggestion.
Thank you, Councillor Sheard. Councillor Lawson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Rising to talk about this year's council corporate plan, I need to first point out that these plans, as they come to us over the years, have numerous guises. They change, they morph, they come to us in different ways, each one different from the last. But I'll come to that later. A corporate plan lives and dies by the ability for it to be measured within its own lifetime. Now, without all of that, all we've got is a long mission statement. So it's interesting to see that in this year, it's encouraging to see that in this year's, we have, in the 8 vision sections, we have a Measuring Our Impact headline. Now, I'm not going to read them all out, but to give flavour, sustainable economy will be measured by disposable income and productivity per head, pound signs. Firstly, if that's an exclusive list, then heaven help us. What about SME growth, business startups and external investment, to mention a few? Secondly, what does success look like in our measurements? What increase do we hope to see? Or is whatever we end up with seen as a back of the net and a goal? We all shout goal. The efficient and effective section says there is no high-level indicators. We're going to make plans. Now, this is a common theme through this, and as Councillor Cooper said, those plans without timescales are just ideas. They're not really measurable plans. We can't really go forward with them. The point I'm making is that there are plenty of good ambitions in here that are right and good, but there's very little strategy, no clearly defined targets, no milestones set, progress review practices or change management considerations. That means reduced transparency, reduced accountability and weaker governance. In the introduction, our leader says we want to revive our town centres and enhance our villages, and we develop more master plans without an idea of what that looks like, the timescales, what the flavour might be on that. I mean, I welcome the idea of using the golden rule of local government, which is doing things with people, not to them. It's central to liberal democracy, and we continue to practice that on a daily basis. I look forward to the Council doing the same. I'd suggest that a template needs to be developed with a rigorous set of targets for a plan that can be used annually over a longer term. With that plan, the administration needs to develop an appetite to perform and learn and overcome the risks of occasionally falling short of those targets. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lawson. Councillor David Hall, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the administration's plan. I agree with Councillor Cooper. It is well written. But anybody that's read the works of Edward Lear or Spike Milligan know that there is such thing as well-written nonsense. It says in the second paragraph, and I have a few questions for Councillor Panda on this, we want to revive our town centres. Revival, of course, occurs after death. So I wonder whether Councillor Panda would admit that's a poor choice of words, or would he stick by them? We will develop master plans that will translate into action. Can you give us a timescale, please, on when we will see these master plans? We have now had a Labour administration for nearly 10 years and no one's seen a master plan yet. We are enhancing diversity within the council. Could you tell us how he's doing it, please? We are putting inclusive growth at the heart of everything we do. Could Councillor Pando please give an example of that? On the second page, it talks about place-based working. Now, this is something that I am pleased to support. I think this is important that we do have place-based working. It says further down, the grassroots level is where real change can be delivered that makes real difference to people's lives, and that is true. There's nothing truer. But there is a yes but, and the but is, if we are to transform things at grassroots level, we need budgets at grassroots level, and not budgets that are controlled by the centre in order that everybody gets the same poor service. Madam Mayor, if we just go on to the page about clean and green, just to particularly to pick some points out here. Most of these points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, under what we do in I would class as being poor. And I think the administration needs to address these with urgency. Reviewing how we provide key services to residents, such as waste collection, recycling and street cleansing, I don't think is very much to crow about at the moment from this administration. Ongoing highways maintenance is poor. Improving the quality of green spaces, which enable people to be active and increase biodiversity, presumably, which is code for we won't cut the grass, is poor. Improving air quality across the borough is non-existent. And when it comes to, we have our ambitious plan to develop 10,000 new homes. If it goes at the same rate as the administration's other ambitious plans, we'll be waiting till doomsday till the first sod's cut. Madam Mayor, this isn't what I see of the borough. It doesn't even represent any image of the borough that I recognise. And after reading it, I still have no idea at all as what the leader's priorities are. So perhaps he could also answer the question, just what are the priorities that emerge from the plan? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Councillor Sims, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, this report is a lot of weasel words in my mind. There's no meat on the bones. And as I read through it, what you're cheering about, what you've achieved, I can't believe. Southgate Special School in my ward, you closed it, you moved it to another one. You've left the school empty, vandalised. You've not decided to sell it, do anything with it. It must be 3 years ago since that happened. Markets, cheering about markets. You've put no investment into markets. You're closing our market in Owen Firth. Weasel words again. Green and clean. Green and clean. All the planning that's gone through for house and that, there's no new infrastructure hardly in any of the districts. Our highways seem to think that houses can go there and infrastructure, right, don't matter. But at the end of the day, we'll be paying for it, and it'll be very costly. A new council, efficient and effective. Well, I can tell you this, in 30 years of being a council, it's harder for me now to make contact with any officers, to get to know anything, to get any feedback. It's horrendous. The council is worse now than it's ever been as regards, from my point of view, of councillors being able to contact and be able to get some sense. I asked many months ago for a chart showing what officers now do what positions they're in, We've not got it. We don't know who does what. Green and clean again. 22,000 bins in my ward not being emptied, and it looks as though that's going to continue. Let's get to grips with it. It should have been got to grips with months and months ago. From reading in between the lines, you'll all have got the letter. It's not all on the side of the unions, it's on our side as well. We need to get to grips with that and get it sorted. If we've not allowed people to take holidays, that's against the law, and there's something seriously wrong that's happened, and people can jump up and say, I've not been able to take holiday for 4 years or whatever. That's really bad. Libraries, safe and cohesive. You're crying about libraries. 1.9 million you've cut out of libraries. And how can you crow about it? You know, it's weasel words. Efficient and effective. Telephones. You all pick up the phone, you all try to ring this council, and you get through, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait, and you wait. And they keep saying, oh, we want to do business. We want to do it with you. We want you to get through. But you wait quarter of an hour, 20 minutes, half an hour. It's ridiculous. And if that's happening to councillors, what's happening to our community people that's trying to ring through? I'll tell you, they can't get through. And that's why some of these services are crowing. They aren't doing all because they don't listen and they don't get the phone calls from the people that want things doing. So come on now, let's and when you look at last year's plan, it's just the same weasel words, and you've not done a right lot. Let's have some meat on the bones. Let's know what you're going to do. Let's have some forward planning, where it's going to work, where it's going to happen, what you're going to spend, because weasel words are no good to anybody. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sims. Councillor Watson, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One of the fundamental principles of interpreting a document is to look at the words that the parties have actually chosen to use. So I'm going to do that. I'm just going to look at the section on sustainable economy, because the economy is something that I'm very, very interested in. It's a good, progressive, developing, prosperous economy that will deliver the economic resources that will support everything else that we want to do within the borough. And we set out here with an aspiration, and the aspiration is that we have sustainable economic growth, provide good employment for and with communities and business. Okay? So that's fair enough in terms of an aspiration. It's not quantified, it's difficult to measure, I appreciate that, but as a headline objective, that's fine. But then let's drill down and have a look at how that's going to be delivered, or what that actually means in reality. And we start in the first paragraph with a very, very bold statement. The private sector will generate growth. Okay? Very, very bold statement. The private sector will generate growth. I don't think we can take that for granted. I think the private sector will only generate growth if Kirklees is an attractive place to invest and the private sector can see itself making profit from investing in Kirklees. And therefore, that is something that we need to create, or rather we need to create the environment in which that can happen. And frankly, I don't see a great deal of that going on at the moment. Now, I run a business, not in Kirklees, I run a business in Leeds, but I'm interested in item 2, a joined-up business growth support system. Okay? I would love to know I'd love to get one. I'd love to know what a joined-up business growth support system is. So if somebody can tell me what a joined-up business growth support system is, I'm in the market for one, because if it can help support my business in Leeds, I'll take one for there as well. And again, these are words that are written down. You have to look at the words that are actually written, and they don't really mean anything. And that's the fundamental point. Move down to part 5, okay? Working more closely with business partners to change attitudes, okay? What are the attitudes that need changing? What are the attitudes about Kirklees and about this area? And I know the Deputy Leader doesn't take this seriously. It's not the first time. I'm actually very passionate about this area and economic growth, which is why I'm on my feet speaking now. What are the attitudes about this area that need changing? How are they going to be changed? And what does change look like? Whose attitude? Who has those attitudes? And how will they have changed after this? We have no details. But why do they have... The implication here is that there are attitudes that are adverse to this district. Why do people have those attitudes after 10 years of Labour running the area? Ask yourself that question. Now, again, for me, this is all about detail and specifics. And I would throw down the gauntlet and say, come on, let's have some specifics here. Actually, if we look back a little bit, there is a document on the website, the Council's website for 2014, which was an economic plan, which really is quite detailed. There's clearly a lot of work put into that by officers. And I'm just picking, again, various sections out of this because it is a long document. But it talks about, back in 2014, what we were going to do. So let's just have a look at some of those and let's think about, have we achieved success? Have we delivered? Item 5A, revitalise Huddersfield Town Centre with more cultural, leisure and independent retail attractions. Okay? So in those 4 years, since 2014, have we actually seen more cultural, leisure and independent retail attractions in Huddersfield Town Centre? Develop mixed-use schemes in the town centre to include quality residential and office space, including a St George's Quarter, a waterfront quarter and other prominent gateway sites. Okay? Are they there? If they are, show us them. Deliver the Huddersfield Smart Town Initiative. Okay? Have we done that? Have we got that? Does it look pretty smart? I'll tell you what, I nipped into Sainsbury's tonight before I came here just to buy some water. As I came out, I looked at the building just directly opposite Sainsbury's. Have a look at that next time you're up there and tell me if you think this is a smart town looking at that building. If there has been an initiative to make that smart, it's not. Okay? Kickstart the transformation of Dewsbury, building on its strategic location and driven by integrated housing and economic development in and beyond the town centre and connected to communities. Is that the Dewsbury that you recognise 4 years on? Have we achieved that? Transformation of Dewsbury, building on its strategic location, driven by integrated housing and economic development. 30 seconds, Councillor Watson. Redevelop Pioneer House as a key town centre building. Use neighbourhood-level economic development. I could go on. I'm not going to. I think I've made my point. We need more than platitudes. We actually need detail. And if we are going to rely on the private sector to generate growth, as this says, then we need to engage with them.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor A. Pinnock, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The danger with documents like this, it always seems to me, is that it could be full of platitudes. I think there are some platitudes in there, which is really very unfortunate, because I think that all organisations of our size do have to have a plan. Having a plan is a good idea. Planning prevents problems, after all. But I do wonder, and this is, I don't know who can answer this question, has this been audited? Have our external auditors looked at this document and said that it fairly represents what Kirklees is going to do in the next, how many years? I don't know what this refers to, actually, how many years. But that seems to me a fair question, having not done governance and audit on Kirklees but on various outside bodies, how important that body's corporate plan actually is to the auditors. And it's an independent view of whether it's fit for purpose. Some of the details in there, get the basics right. Well, one could go on at length about certain things that we don't think are right, and one or two speakers have already mentioned things like that. Particularly in the leader's introduction, he talks about town centres, and Councillor Hall mentioned this. We need to ensure town centres remain prosperous, and that is vital everywhere. And Councillor Watson referred in a document of Kirklees to the strategic importance of Dewsbury. Well, actually, there's another town in Kirklees that's got a very good strategic location, and that's Cleckheaton, right next to the M62. I don't know whether Cleckheaton's mentioned in this document, but I'm not at all sure about that. There is another issue that somebody made reference to, and I suppose it's under the clean and green area, to do with air quality. There is a very large motorway roundabout in my ward, which I think has got fairly poor air quality, but I'm not aware that Kirklees has given it enough priority. Now, all right, there aren't many houses near it, but quite a lot of people, more than you might think, actually walk round the roundabout one way or another. So I do think that we need to look at issues like that, not just in Huddersfield or Dewsbury, but everywhere. Otherwise, we're going to end up with people thinking, oh, they're doing this to us. And I know it says in the document that we shouldn't be doing that, but they will think that. And just finally, who thought up the title? Because I think that is a bit of a red rag to some residents of this borough who really don't like Kirklees. I know that's the name of the authority. We can't avoid that. But to say we're Kirklees, I just think that was possibly ill-advised, and a better title could have been thought up.
Thank you, Councillor Pinnock. Councillor Burke, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just follow on from the previous point about the title on there. I've noticed this crop up on a number of documents recently. It'd just be interesting to know when this came about, how much time, effort and money went into creating this new logo, the new branding, which refers to we are, or they're not. I don't know what it refers to or what you're trying to achieve with the new branding. In the introduction, it talks about master plans, about developing master plans and about working with communities and working with residents and doing our best for them. I think a good way to start on that is not to force things on them. And as has been referred to by previous speakers, about working with communities, finding out what they need, making sure there is a plan, a strategic plan, so that if we do something in an area, we're well equipped and we can cope with dealing with the effects. Notably housing, and when we force housing in a certain area and we build hundreds of houses, this has a huge impact on what you try and set out and achieve in this plan. In so much as school places, and children will get the best starts in life. When they're struggling to get a school place, they're going to struggle. And that has a knock-on effect throughout their life for the families who have to give up the part-time employment that they have in order to take a child to one school and then another child to a different school in the area in order to be able to do that. And I think it's important that we look at the impact on developments, the cumulative impact on 100 houses here, 20, 30, and then all of a sudden you've got hundreds of houses in an area which does not have the infrastructure to cope or deal with it. In Lindley, in my ward, we've seen that happen. We've seen it happen time and time again. Shops struggle, there's no parking, there's talk of parking charges. That's been ruled out, I think, during the last election, so everybody said, so I'm sure that remains the same. We were scaremongering at the time, and maybe that was just a way of denying what's going to happen. For people to have healthy lives and access in parks, open spaces, stop taking equipment out. That might help. Start sorting out the footpaths and the roads so that people can get to work in a safe and well way. You talk about being committed to do this. I'd like to know how that's going to happen. You said that you're going to ensure that local people continue to get good services. I've not met many recently who say they're getting a good service. So if they're going to continue to get what they're getting now, it's not a good service at all. On the efficient and effective way of working and how the council will work in a smart way, I'll just make one point about Councillor Inquiry's Place, that email address where we send issues into. I don't know about many others or how people have found that. I've found that there's no accountability. I send in an email, send in an issue, I wait what was a few days, I'm now waiting a couple of weeks to get a reference number. Once I get the reference number, I then have to wait, well, what was a couple of weeks at one time when this started, now I'm waiting at least a month, over a month, to get an answer. And if it's a technical issue and they've misunderstood my point or my question, I then have to reply again and wait another couple of months. And that's no way of doing things. Residents get frustrated. I get frustrated because I like to deal with it, get on with it and move on to the next issue. There's no accountability. I don't know who's answering these questions. Often I get standard, I get policy quoted back to me, which I've received many times. I know the policy. I'm looking for answers to the questions that are raised. There's no accountability whatsoever. So I'd look at having what we used to have before, which was a more effective way and a smart way of doing things, sitting down around a table once a month or every 2 months, having a ward meeting, having the key people there from highways and waste and other areas, so we can sit down, discuss the issues and get the answers. And that way it stays on the agenda and we know who's doing what. Now I'm fobbed off with an unknown email address and somebody saying something to me which just takes months. That's not a smart and effective way. So I'd ask, if you are going to do something and improve things in an effective way, that we look at having ward meetings so we can hold people to account.
Thank you, Councillor Burke. Any more comments? Right of reply. Councillor Pandor, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Before I came here, Madam Mayor, I was talking to one of my mates. That he said that you'll have your council meeting, it'll finish in no time. I said, why did you say that? He says, well, England match on and you brought the meeting forward and everybody was there for Queen and Country. And I said, yes, but I hope they're all there for the council. Because that's what we're talking about, this council and how this council fits in to the local area and how it fits into the wider economy. I'm actually a bit disappointed, to be honest, Madam Mayor. Not because I don't mind criticism, but in terms of we're trying to actually make sure that Kirklees, the name and the brand, is recognised. I understand that since 1974 we've been grappling with this problem. And what I'm trying to do is look at what the survey told us regarding Kirklees and the branding. And I'll come on to that in terms of, is the town dying or is it still alive in a minute. But young people can see Kirklees as their town, their place, their area. People like me see Batley as my town, my place. And in Batley, I'll see my little locality as my place. But younger people don't see the world that way, Madam Mayor. Younger people see the world in a completely different lens. And if you ask young people what they feel about Kirklees, they feel proud. And that's why I'm a bit disappointed that some of my colleagues in this room were actually slagging off the word where Kirklees. It's not perfect, but if they've got any more ideas, we're here to listen. A lot of time and effort is actually going into the branding because we need to make sure we get it right. Also, and again, I don't want to go into too much detail, but I think it's important that we need to actually get into the detail because we have a democracy commission that's actually working on a cross-party basis. So a lot of the issues that came up, we should actually be referring them to the formal channels rather than waiting here after 6 to 8 weeks and then having a bun fight. Now, if it's about bun fights, I don't mind, and I never lose a bun fight, Madam Mayor. But I think this council is a bit more to do with that. In terms of timescales, Madam Mayor, I accept that we need to actually start the master planning process very, very quickly, and there's a lot of detail to actually put in place. But members seem to forget, for the last 10 years, we've been actually, year on year, trying to actually balance the budgets. And it's only last year, in our budget, we actually put something back in. And it's only very recently, the last couple of years, that we've actually sort of starting to not rely on our reserves. We're trying to actually put that capital plan and that longer-term thinking back into place. Councillor Horn actually raised a really interesting point, and I actually think it's a very serious point. Reviving our towns and our places. There's a lot of research that's been done, Madam Mayor, around cities' centres of excellence, and evidence is showing that town centres are getting older, towns like ours, and cities are getting younger. Now, you can read a lot into that, but that is happening here, because our towns are getting older, and our cities are getting younger. And if you look at the stuff that's happening around the region and around the wider region, that's what's happening. So what we need to do, we need to make sure that we actually do that investment, have that longer ambition, and get time out to actually think about how we can actually make our towns get younger. And that's what we're trying to do. Town centres and the place is changing so fast. The world is changing so fast. we've got 60% of our revenue budget that has been slashed. The government is trying to push us to a state where we actually raise our own finances. Now, a place like Kirklees and surrounding areas, that's impossible, because if we start relying on our own business rates, we'll become bankrupt very, very quickly. Councils up and down the country, irrespective of what political denomination they are actually struggling. So it's on the back of this that we are actually sort of like trying to run our services. Adult social care, Madam Mayor, there's a massive black hole in that. We are trying our best to make that work. Children's services, and again, I'm just repeating the same one arguments. So you see, within this context, we're trying to make this work. So I accept a lot of points that members have made. There are a lot of challenges, there are a lot of ambitions there, and we will actually build on that. The master plans that will come, we'll start putting the timescales on there. And further down the agenda, sorry about that, nearly finished. Further down the agenda is holding the executive account. So what I will do is I will share what my priorities are and the ambitions of the cabinet. And now we are trying to make the plan work, and we're going to try and work against the tide, which is not of this council's making, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. So, using the consoles, please can we vote on the recommendations as moved by Councillor Pandor? Thank you, members. That is carried. Thank you. So, keeping to the amended order of business, item 10, page 95, allocation of seats, update. Please note that it is necessary to amend allocations since the report in the agenda was published due to changes within the Conservative group. An amended paper has been tabled. Councillor Sokol, please.
Madam Mayor, I move that in order to achieve overall proportionality, Council approve the amended ratio as set out in the table report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sokol. Is that seconded, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll second that based on the changes that have recently been made. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Are there any comments on this matter? No? Right of reply, Councillor Sokol? Thank you. So, using the consoles, please can we vote on the recommendation as moved by Councillor Sokol? That's carried. Thank you. Item 11, to receive an update on the work of the Joint Health Scrutiny Committee, Calderdale and Kirklees. Councillor Smage, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just briefly, the Joint Health Scrutiny Committee met last Friday to receive the Secretary of State's letter and the IRP report following the Scrutiny Committee's referral. If you haven't seen either the letter or the IRP report, they are available on the Kirklees website with the meeting papers. The Secretary of State's letter states that the proposals are not in the best interests of Calderdale and Greater Huddersfield residents and asks locally and nationally for a rethink. The IRP report points to 3 areas of work, concluding that some parties have called for the IRP to undertake a full review. However, it would not be a review at this stage, as there is more work to be done that would cover new ground, the responsibilities of the CCGs, the Trust, NHS England and NHSI. At this point, the IRP states it is not possible to know whether the proposals are feasible. For work is needed on out-of-hospital care, hospital capacity and the available of capital. The CCGs have outlined that they are exploring the implications of a phased approach of the implementation of the proposals in relation to the 3 areas by the IRP. They need to report back to the Secretary of State by the 10th of August on progress. Scrutiny work was paused while we waited for an answer to our referral. It has now recommenced, and the scrutiny panel is looking to put its own reply forward to the Secretary of State by the 10th of August. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you, Councillor Smage. Are there any comments, please? Councillor Kendrick, please.
I don't know if it's a comment and I don't know if it's appropriate. It's a little bit of a question just to clarify some facts in a conversation I had the other day. I know that the Joint Scrutiny Panel is putting together a response, Councillor Smage, and I'm just wanting to know, I thought that still held the same status it did the first time round. Somebody else has said to me that it doesn't carry the same weight, but I understood that if scrutiny felt that some things weren't right, weren't appropriate, it still carried the same sort of status and weight as it did originally.
Thank you, Councillor Kendrick. Councillor Smage, would you like to come back on that? Thank you.
The State's letter is addressed to myself and Councillor Wilkinson, the joint chairs of the panel, and is asking for a reply back from the CCGs, CHFT and the NHS England and NHSI by the 10th of August. But it indicates it's also expecting a reply back from ourselves. And we will be replying back with our thoughts so far. Okay. Yes, yes. I think what was indicated at the scrutiny panel by the CCG was that if they brought forward their proposals, then they not necessarily think it needs to go out back to consultation, in which case it would be scrutiny that would decide whether it was a substantial change or not. So I think there's the 2 things there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smage, for that update. Thank you. Item 12. Written questions to the Leader, Cabinet Members, Chairs of Committees and nominated spokespersons. A written schedule of submitted questions has been circulated. I will now invite members to ask their questions in turn. The appropriate member will respond, and 1 supplementary question to each submitted question is permitted. Question by Councillor Michael Watson to the Cabinet Member for Learning and Aspiration. Councillor Masood Ahmed.
I've made this point before that we decide who we put the questions to, but the person who's been asked the question can delegate the answer. So the question is to the Leader. It's therefore up to him to decide whether he wants to answer or not. Defining one school day as one school being closed for all or part of a day, how many school days have been lost in Kirklees as a consequence of weather-related events in the period 1st of December 2017 through to 1st of April 2018?
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Pandor, then, to reply.
Mayor, can I ask for a point of order? Because I'm not clear, because my understanding is that if a question is asked of any member or the leader, under procedure rules, we can actually ask another member who is more suited to answer that question. So can we just... Yeah, but I think what he mentioned was he actually... Yeah, but I think I'm not clear, because I thought we can do that before the meeting, and what we're doing is during the meeting. So I'm not clear, because if it's to be done during the meeting, then we don't need to go through the messing around that we do before the meeting.
Yeah, Richard, can you just clarify on that, please?
Are allowed to pass that question on to a more appropriate member to answer the question. It doesn't specify whether it's in or before the meeting. You've done it before the meeting, so the schedule reflects the fact that that question's already been passed on to another member.
Right, Councillor Masood Ahmed, to answer this question, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Watson. There are 180 schools, nursery, infant, junior, primary, all through secondary and special and pupil referral units. There are 5 calendar days where some or all schools or partially was closed. Wednesday the 17th of January, only 4 schools were affected on that day. Wednesday the 28th of February, Thursday 1st of March, Friday 2nd of March, Thursday 8th of March, and the actual number of schools days that were lost was 647 days. Councillor Watson. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ahmed. Councillor Watson, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you for a very comprehensive answer.
Thank you. Question 2 by Councillor Michael Watson to the Cabinet Member for Corporate Services, Councillor Graham Turner.
In the civic years 2013 to 14, 2014 to 15, 2016 to 17 and 17 to 18, how much has been spent by the Council on personnel in employment grades 18 through to 24 in respect of the following: professional development training, professional subscriptions and higher education qualification support? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. I'm going to pass that straight over to Councillor Turner, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Watson. In response to the first part of your question, we do not hold central records of professional development training or costs by employment grades. Therefore, this information is not available. In answer to your second part of your question, there are some corporate professional subscriptions paid to organisations such as Public Service People's Managers Association, the Municipal Journal, etc., on behalf of the Council in general. However, there are no payments made for individual professional subscriptions. Individuals are responsible for paying their own professional subscriptions at all levels in the organisation, e.g. legal officers, social workers, HR and finance professionals, etc. In answer to your final point, any support for degree study will be organised directly by the appropriate service manager at a local level and most likely funded through the apprenticeship levy. Again, there is no central record by grade to identify which level of staff have accessed higher education training, but from experience, such training is most likely to take place for staff in lower grades than staff at a more senior level. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Watson, do you have a supplementary? Question 3, question by Councillor Michael Watson to the Cabinet Member for Communities and Environment, Councillor Naheed Mather.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Why was the service whereby residents could tip rubber from the primary recycling site withdrawn?
Can you press your button again? We can hear you, please. Thank you.
Why was the service whereby residents could tip rubble at Bromley Farm recycling site withdrawn?
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Mather, please. That sounds like a drum roll.
Okay. Thank you for your question, Councillor Watson. But if you had turned up to the Cabinet meeting open to all members, including the public, you would know that a decision was made back in March 2016 to remove rubble from household waste recycling centres. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mather. Councillor Watson, do you have a supplementary?
Yes. Why?
Councillor Mather, please.
If you had turned off, there is a report, a detailed report, and you'd know why. And we removed it because the material is deemed by central government as industrial waste and is controlled waste regulations. So, hence, we removed it.
Thank you, Councillor Mather. Number 4, question by Councillor Michael Watson to the Cabinet Member for Communities and Environment, Councillor Naheed Mather.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. I'm advised that the Council is unable to use covert cameras for fly tipping investigations without consent under the Regulation of Investor Powers Act legislation. On the basis that this advice is indeed correct, could the Cabinet Member advise what is required to obtain such consent, what is the legal test or the legal test that must be satisfied in the obtaining of consent, and how many times has the Council secured such consent in the last 3 years?
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Councillor Mather, please.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. And my reply, once again, is if you had read the very detailed report presented to Cabinet in December 2017, you wouldn't need to ask these questions. I've also rightfully informed that with your legal professional background, you would know majority of the answers. And as for the final one, how many times has the Council secured such consent in the last 3 years? No applications have been received. We have successfully used CCTV to issue several fixed penalty notices and on one occasion, successful prosecution for fly tipping.
Thank you, Councillor Mather. Councillor Watson, do you have a supplementary? Thank you. Question 5, question by Councillor Michael Watson to the Cabinet Member for Communities and Environment, Councillor Naheed Mather.
Thank you again, Madam Mayor. Is there a height restriction on vehicles entering the Bromley Farm recycling site?
Councillor Watson, the response from me is yes.
Supplementary, Councillor Watson.
Every question that I've asked tonight has been as a direct question from a ward member that's asked me to put it, so I'm a bit disconcerted by some of the answers I've received. But this question relates to the fact that there is, and a ward member cannot use that site, and therefore they have to go to Meltham, where I understand there is no height restriction, a round trip of 20 miles. Is that correct?
Councillor Mather.
Councillor Watson, the height is set at 2 metres, and this restriction helps to ensure that suitably sized vehicles access the site without causing issues for other users. So, yes, you are right that we do have a restriction on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mather. As we said at the start of the meeting, we are hoping to finish at 5:30. So I do need to check if there are any questions from the members of the public or any petitions. No. Thank you. Thank you for confirming that. Question 6, question by Councillor Richard Smith to the Leader of the Council, Councillor Shabir Pandor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and welcome to your term of office. I hope you have a good year. Councillor Pandor, can you explain what steps the Council has taken to try and avert industrial action by refuse collectors in South Kirklees? How confident are you that there will be no further action?
Thank you, Councillor Smith, for that very important question. It's unfortunate that we were in a situation we found ourselves in last week, Madam Mayor. What I'll try and do is I'll try and go through very quickly. I'm conscious of the time in terms of what our officers have done. I think first I'd like to thank all the staff who have worked really, really hard and continue to work hard to provide a service to all our residents. The history is quite complex, but what I'll do is I'll try and cover it very succinctly, Madam Mayor. Before Christmas, this dispute started, and a lot of time and resource went in by our management to actually try and work up some solution with our union, namely Unison. 2 meetings were held, Madam Mayor, with ACAS. The first meeting that was held with ACAS went pretty well. They had an agreement in place, and you know, everything seemed to be okay, because at the first meeting the strike was suspended, and you know, it looked like we were going to actually have a way forward, which I believe we did. Very quickly, things deteriorated and talks broke down. And as soon as the talks broke down, we had a second meeting that took place, and the second meeting looked it was going to be really fruitful. But again, what happened was, due to unjustifiable reasons, the unions walked out. We just couldn't understand why they walked out, because I've looked at all the evidence, and there is no rationale or any evidence that I would believe that you know, management were doing anything untowards. Actually, the evidence suggests that, you know, it was some of our managers who were being indirectly bullied, but I don't want to go into too much around that. Anyway, what happened was the Unison and the unions met, and the strike action ballot took place, and we found ourselves in an unfortunate situation of the strike going ahead on the 9th of July. But having said that, management was still very, very confident and very sort of like hard-working to actually meet a day before strike action took place. Fortunately, they did meet a day before, and they met with the regional joint secretaries and all the unions, and an agreement was reached, and the agreement was accepted by the unions and our management. But unfortunately, when the unions went back to their members, the members voted that they actually want to go on strike. We asked, is there anything that we can do? And the answer again was that they had no real reason to actually stop the strike action going forward. So we found ourselves in a situation where the unions had no justifiable reason. They had a mandate to strike, and you know, they actually went on strike. They've gone back to work now, but what I have been advised is they are going to meet again on Friday. And again, our management is very, very clear in terms of what the offer is. The offer is actually being accepted by all the unions, and we are hopeful that the proposal we have makes sense, and they actually address the 2 issues around holiday pay, which was mentioned earlier on, and the issue around you know, how do we actually manage that holiday pay, and how do we actually manage the process of getting extra workers in. And again, all that has been agreed. There is a paper which actually highlights a lot more detail. What I'll ask Richard to do is email that tomorrow morning, so all the members have that in sight. I don't think it's a secret document, but I think all the details and all the negotiations that have taken place, it's important that every single member in this room sees what's been happening, so you know, we can share that with them. I'm hopeful that on Friday talks commence, agreements are reached, and we have a resolution that moving forward we have a better relationship with our trade unions and our staff. Namely, in this particular situation, it's Unison who's actually the main union who's actually called the strike ballot. Madam Mayor, strike and stopping services is no good to anybody. You know, as members, you know, we're not management, we're not staff. We're here to actually provide a service and meet the needs of all our residents. So I'd like to once again thank all our staff and the senior management who have actually been working really, really hard, very tirelessly to make things work. And I will update you further as the situation develops. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. Councillor Smith, do you have a supplementary?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to say that there's a very long-winded response to a fairly straightforward question. We've heard a lot about this. I've been following this very closely in the Examiner, and we've seen an awful lot of effort put into this by the officers, the Chief Exec and Carl Battersby, which has got to be commended. But the question needs to be asked. You mentioned 2 meetings with ACAS. You keep using words like we, they and us. Now, which is it? Is it we, is it they, or is it us? I mean, specifically, what has the Kirklees political leadership been doing to avert this strike action? So are you attending these meetings with ACAS? Are you going to this meeting on Friday? You know, to me, what's happening is that the officers are doing all the work and the Labour Party are hiding behind their relationship with the unions and doing nothing about it. What are you doing about it, Councillor Pandor? Personally.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Pandor, please.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Madam Mayor, I actually mentioned earlier on that I'm not part of management and I'm not a member of staff. I'm here, elected, like he's, to serve the majority of the community, or every single person in the community. Madam Mayor, this is a very serious issue, and if Councillor Smith wants to actually take this seriously right here, then he needs to listen. We have a very, very good senior management team. We have a very clear process, and I will not get involved in due process because I think that will do no good for anybody. And I make no apology to actually interfere from a political point of view, because to interfere politically will damage everything this council stands for. Everything, Madam Mayor. So, Madam Mayor, I think in the interest of our community, we need to have full confidence in our staff, full confidence in management, and I'm confident that they're trying their best. One thing I will not allow myself or any of my members to do is to interfere in a process which has been set in law and get political about it. So if he wants to go and talk to the unions, then I suspect that, that would be the wrong thing to do. So please, Madam Mayor, let's keep an air of realism in this chamber, and let's put our residents first and stop playing politics.
Thank you, Councillor Pandor. With 10 seconds left and counting down, can I just remind, just one moment, please. I know you've all got itchy feet, just one moment. But obviously any outstanding items that we've not covered this evening will be carried over to the next meeting. We're now in extra time, and I do hope this early finish is worth it. Thank you. I will now close the meeting.